when you select the material for the door of the safe, what you're after is 23 inches long, 9 inches wide. Now when you select your material, things you want to watch for is, I'll zoom in here a little bit. This has it's called a pithy area where there's some rot going on. I don't want that in my door. And I also don't want this crack up here, right here. So, but there's still a lot of good wood there. We don't have to chuck the whole piece because of a couple little defects. We can cut this to 23 inches long. We can joint the edge and we can get a 2.5 inch piece, cut the crack out of there, and then get about a 3 inch piece. And we can even possibly get the little piece off this edge here. And then this piece over here, this is a bad edge here, but we can get a 3 inch chunk out of that. All those pieces combined will give us our 9 inches. We only need 8.5, but 9 inches is the rough cut dimension. So what you're going to do is come over. Okay, now to make the cut, we just come and turn on the machine right here. Push the start button. Try to piece of work into here. Make sure that that end with the crack is on this end, so they want to cut the crack off there. And then the cut. Piece out. Slide over. Next piece. In. Set the machine off. Take the scraps, make sure you throw them in the garbage. The joiner, make sure your cut isn't too much. I'm going to make sure that's maybe a 1/16 of an inch. Turn it on, I release the lever, hit the start button, I make my cut, I hold my hand here against it, the wood slides past this hand, and as soon as I can, I bring the hand over to this side and finish the cut. Remember, the force should be down on the outside. That's the most important part. This side hasn't been cut yet. This side has been cut, so we want to make sure most of our force and our concentration is on the outfeed table. With your hand back here, you're not going to get back into the blade. Right here, lock it to the table so it can't slide, because you of course want to slide your hand into that blade. Okay. This cut, even though my hand may be coming across the blade, keep in mind that it's harder for me to slip it down because this fence here actually acts as a guard, and so if I slip down my hand, it's either going to come out here or it's going to hit the fence. Less chance of my going into the blade with the top hand. But as opposed to this smaller piece, whenever a piece is not higher than the fence, this fence can't act as a guard, you want to use a push stick. And you're going to use the push stick to hold it down and against the fence. Because again, the fence can't stop you, it can't protect you from going into the blade. So you've got to have something up there higher. Check your piece, make sure it's flat. And actually on this white piece, I'm going to joint both edges. That way I can just cut that off and cut this off and save myself a little bit of work. Check your edge before you finish, make sure it's clean and smooth all the way and make sure it's straight. Okay, now when we're doing ripping, where our potential for skinny pieces makes it so tight that the normal guard won't work, we always need a guard. We're going to use this modified guard right here, it's a thing that'll keep you from inadvertently not thinking, reaching, and getting your hand on the back side of the blade. We're just going to put that in like so, and that'll make it so on the skinny pieces we can get the push stick in there and make clearance. At the same time, we're protected back on this side of the blade. Now, what I want to do is put in, want to make these cuts, make the best use of our material. So, first thing you do is drop the blade down to where it belongs, about 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch above the material. I measure, if you don't have a tape measure, we've got these little bench rulers right here laying around. I'm going to measure that, and that says that's measured 2 5/8. So I'm going to set this fence over here at 2 5/8. I'll make that cut. Now that cut will give me a nice clean strip right here that I'll be able to use. Now you can see as I finish this cut, that crack I had actually opened up and broke the wood apart. Now if I take and put this edge against the fence, I have a gap right there. And you don't want that. So to use this edge again, I need to go back to the joiner and get rid of this part right here. You have to take it piece by piece. And this one right here says, yeah, joint that off of there because this edge is no longer flat. All right, I've jointed this edge off. It's now clean, flat, straight. Now I'm going to measure this again. And this is measuring at, to that pithy part right there, it measures 3 inches. So I'm going to set this fence at 3 inches and make that cut. Make sure as you make this cut, you push it clear of the blade. Don't leave it stopped back here, because then the chance of a kickback dramatically increases. Excuse the French. Push it clear of the blade, and that should give you a clean cut. And when you reach around for it, wait till the blade stops. Okay, next, I'm gonna get this last little piece right here. So to get that, I just measure it. Same procedure. It measures 3/4 of an inch. So I'm gonna set the saw at 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to possibly get the skinnier push stick. Now, the reason for this particular guard here is people have a tendency to want to grab these scraps, and this guard stops you from wanting to grab that scrap, keeps your hand away from there. That is the source for almost every saw stop fire we have. Now, the last piece I want to cut is this one. This one, if you look at it, it has a twist to it. And the twist isn't a good thing, but because of the type of thing we're gluing together right now, we can minimize that twist by cutting this into 2 strips. Now we're going to get 3 inches of usable. I'm going to set the saw at 1.5 inches. Notice when I pull the material away, I use the end of the push stick, pull it out. Okay, now what I've got is all these pieces, put them together, check the measurement. You should have at least 9 inches. Now let's see if I can get by without that piece. That piece puts me right at 8.5, which is pretty iffy, so I'm going to use that piece. Now, if you start looking at this material, you find that the color and the texture, things like that just are kind of, you know, a little bit different. This right here is a little whiter piece than this piece as far as color goes. The beauty of Wormy Maple is you can mix it up and it's a miracle. It'll forgive you if things aren't just right. So I'm going to kind of shake this up a little bit and mix the pieces around. And I'm going to put the skinny piece more in the middle. Thing is, by doing that, now if I want to break this up even more, I can rip these two big pieces here in half and shuffle it up even more, which was what I think I'll do, because it's going to give me a more uniform irregularity. That's hard to forget that. But I am going to cut these in half, and then I'm going to glue them all together into one happy family. I've mixed them all up. Now when I grab them, hold them up like that, I can see that I've got a real nice fit on all of those. Good tight joints, no gaps. That's what you're after. Now we're going to go glue it up. Now when we glue it up, in our selection of clamps, we have a variety of different types of clamps here. You want to make sure you get, for the bottom, get 2 of the same kinds of clamps. That way you know your sides are going to be parallel. You're not going to clamp a twist into your door, because you want that to be flat. And you want to make sure that the area is cleared up. Take your pieces like you have them laid out, set them in here, back off these ends here. And you have people that are, they tighten them up clear to the end of these screws right here, and when they tighten them up that tight, then they can't cinch the wood up. They can't figure why. They put all the force in the world on it, and they can't figure why they're not clamping up properly. So we've got that in there. The joints are good. I'm going to bring this end up a little bit here, a little bit. And then I'm going to get the glue. And then it's a simple matter of rotating these up on their edge. I'm not going to rotate that one up because I don't need to put glue on that one. About 1/8 of an inch bead of glue is all we're after on this. Real quick, spread it out with your finger. You don't need to spread it and cover the entire edge of the board because it'll squeeze out, and you'll see. You can lick your finger off if you want. Okay, roll it up. Line them up like so. Slide the clamp up. And you want to have one on each end of the bottom, and then you want one across the top. And again, I should have checked this in here. Okay, now just kind of work your way back and forth. If you get on one clamp real hard, too fast, the wood just starts sliding all over the place. And get some good pressure on it. When you look at your piece, you should have a little bit of squeeze out on just about every, come in a little closer. So I'm getting a little bit of squeeze out just about everywhere on this piece of wood, which is exactly what I want. I don't have so much glue that's dripping all over the place, but I know my joints are going to be good tight joints. At this point, put your name on it, and the period. And wouldn't hurt to put it on the end or on the edges too, just so it's well identified. It has to stay in the clamps a half an hour. You can take it out after half an hour, put it away. You can't plane it or surface it for 2 hours. That's the manufacturer's recommendation for that glue. After the glue's had adequate drying time, take the glue scraper, scrape the beads of glue off it, both sides. You don't have to be overly picky, just rub your hand. If you feel any bumps of glue, get them off. You don't have to get every little ounce of glue off of there. It doesn't come out that much. The planer does most of the work. You got that? Now let's go to the planer. At the planer, you want to measure how thick your material is. It measures about 0.92, which is the decimal equivalent of about 15/16 of an inch. So we're going to cut the doors down. We want to take that down to 3/4 of an inch. And on the planer here, we've got this scale. On the safe, it says start out at 0.92. Then you turn it over, go to 0.86, turn it over, 0.80, turn it over, 0.75. So by the time you're done, both sides should be smooth and you should be at 3/4 of an inch thick. So I'm going to turn on the dust collector and do it. Okay, both sides are smooth. Now we go to the jointer and we have to joint a working edge. A working edge is important. And send it the other way to get rid of that. Okay, chip out is gone. Now we go to the table saw with this working edge, and I've got one here. We're going to put this edge against the fence and cut the other edge off at 8 1/2 inches. That's 8 1/2 inches, right between 8 and 9. Make sure the blade is set to the proper height. Again, with your working edge against the fence, no gaps there. You have the push stick ready, make the cut. Push stick 1/3 the distance from the blade to the fence. Cut. Push it all the way through. Do not worry about this strap. It's not going to go anywhere. After the blade stops, throw the strap away. Okay, now you want to cut this into 2 pieces, 10 1/2 and 10 1/2. Now this end that we've got right here is kind of jagged. It's not straight. Don't assume that it is. You've got to cut it off and square it off first. Now, before we put the squaring jig on here, you make all your adjustments to the tiger fence before you put the thing on. That's really important because you don't want to jam that thing into the tiger fence. It messes it up. So now you type in 10.5 start. And then you want to double check that to make sure it's correct. And it measures at 10.5, 10.5 inches. I'll move this out of the way. Put the squaring jig on the saw. Put your material right here. Raise the blade up to where it's just above the material. And then I'm going to come over and I'm going to cut just that end off to square it up. I've removed a little bit off that end. I'm taking it to the fence because I know this fence is 10.5. Make the next cut. Slide it up to the fence again. Make the last. So we now have two pieces here. One is for the door, one is for the back of the box, the back of the safe.